Hello and welcome to 30 Days to Learn Photoshop. I'm Ben Gribbin, and in today's lesson we are going to be creating documents. So what we're going to consider in the lesson is we're going to look at the features and settings of the new document window and what all those different changes do to the document. So let's start by making a document in Photoshop. So you'll need to open up Photoshop, that's a given, and while we're waiting for that to load, creating documents is usually going to be the first place you start. You might open an existing document, which we'll show you how to do in another lesson, but creating your own document from scratch is usually 9 times out of 10 the sort of beginning that you will start from. So let's have a look at the options we have for creating documents and also how we do it. So to create a document you need to go to File and New, or alternatively you can press Command and New or Control and New if you're on a Mac. Throughout the course we're going to show you keyboard commands wherever we can, because it really does speed up the whole process of working within Photoshop. So keep your eyes and ears out for those. They do pop up on the screen so you'll be able to see what you need to press. So we've got the new document window here. First off, the first option we have here is the name. Now you can leave this blank if you really want to do, but when you then go to save your Photoshop document, it will automatically save as untitled -1 or whatever number it has after that, and that's because you haven't given it a name. So just for good really practice and to set a good example, give it a name, give every document a name. That means when you've got multiple documents open, you will see them along here as their correct name, and it's just a little easier to identify what you're working with. So if we just give it the name test, that's just going to remain the name, and when we save it, it'll then save as test automatically. So that's the name, and that's what you'd use that for. It's just simply for identification. Then we have the preset here, which is a drop down menu, and it's got a couple of options here which have then got sub options. So the default Photoshop size, which is what your fresh install will default to, is this setting here. But also you've got various for US paper, you've then got size options, you've got international paper, photo, web, you've got film and video, mobile and devices, and also a custom setting. And once you actually change any of these settings, if we go back to Photoshop default size, if we put that 12.9 or 12.99, it then becomes a custom setting, and you can actually save presets if you wish to do so. For example, if you were going to make a document that a size or a certain resolution that you would reuse over and over. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a 1600 by 1200 web document, just to show you how it works and what kind of tweaks and settings and changes we need to make. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the width box, which is quite obvious really. We're going to enter in 1600, and let's watch what happens now. If we go to pixels, it'll keep that for us at the same size, so that's brilliant. We can also convert between measurements, which is good. So this height is currently set to 368 pixels. If we go on to inches, it will convert it automatically to inches at the current resolution and bit size. So that's good. That works really well for converting between different units and scales very quickly. So let's just go back to pixels. Now you see we've been using this option here. Photoshop has got 7 different units pre-installed, so that's good. These are all the basic units that you'd ever need to work with. So that's really simple. You just put in the width 1600 and then set it to pixels, and you can also change it pixel by pixel, just increments of 1. If you click onto the width name, you'll see the icon change to this hand with an arrow, and you can drag it left and right. That's just a very quick and easy way of changing that. So to set the height, again we do the same thing. We go to the height box, press 1200, and that's done. So that's at pixels 16 by 1200. Now the resolution generally for the web, you want it to be 72 dpi, your kind of generic web resolution. So if we go to pixels per inch, you notice we were on pixels per centimetre before, and 28.346 is actually 72 pixels per inch. So if we set that to 72, generally that's going to either be 72 or 300 if you're going to work with print files. The next option we have down here is the colour mode. Now there's various colour modes, so depending on what you're going to be using the document for will actually affect the colour mode you set. Now RGB colour is your sort of go-to colour mode for working with the web in general, and grayscale and bitmaps are sort of lower quality, smaller sized documents, but CMYK colour is your print colour mode. So if you're going to be making a file for print, then you'd set it to 300 dpi and you'd set the CMYK colour mode to yes. And all this does is it tells the program what mode it should set colours at, because they do display differently when they are printed or onto a screen, for example. And then finally you've got the bit depth. Now one thing you will notice if you change from 8-bit to 16-bit is the file size basically doubles. Now that's not such a problem. 16-bit allows you to have more detail and colour depth and things like that. So depending on what you're wanting to use the image for, if your computer can handle it, set it to 16-bit. But you will notice down here the image size doubles basically. So at 8-bit in RGB colour, our image size would be 5.49 megabytes. But if we put it to 16, it goes to 11, and then if we put it to 32, it's going to go to 22 megabytes. So if you're working on larger documents, this could start to create problems. Depending on the performance of your computer, you could actually start to see it slow down and start lagging quite drastically. So generally you'd leave that at 8 or 16-bit depending on the performance of your computer. And then finally we have background contents. So the background contents have three options. You've got white, background colour or transparent. So we'll look through what each one of those does now. If you hit white and hit OK, when you create your document, this layer, this first layer that Photoshop has to have, is filled with a white colour. That's fine. It's pretty much the default kind of setting that a lot of people will go for. And it's ideal for simple projects. But if you're going to start working on digital mock-ups, complex photo manipulations and website designs, you might actually prefer to start with a transparent layer. So let's show you how to do that, and let's show you what it looks like. So if we go to File, New, keep all the same settings, but press Transparent, press OK, you see we've got these kind of grey and white boxes. Now that's just Photoshop's interface representing transparency, because obviously otherwise you wouldn't be able to see anything. And if we were to actually save this file now, it would literally contain nothing. So that's what transparent layers are for. They are to allow you to start working on more complicated, complex illustrations, and that's what a transparent layer looks like. It's got these grey and white contrasty squares, so that if you had, for example, a little gap in your layer anywhere, you'd be able to see it because you've got these squares poking through. And then finally you've got the background colour. So let's just close that. This is your colour palette here, and you've got your foreground colour, which is at the front, the square overlaps the back, and the back one is your background colour. So before you go and create a new document, you can double click your background colour, and your foreground colour for that matter, and preset it to any colour you want. Now this just saves you a little bit of time when you're creating your document, and it just makes things a little bit easier. So if you pick your colour by double clicking on the background colour, dragging your mouse around to select the right colour, pressing OK, then you can go to File, New, and you can hit background colour, press OK, and you can see it's that orange colour we've already selected, and that just saves you a couple of seconds when you are making new files. So that is the basics of creating documents in Photoshop. And what have we learnt today? Well, we've looked at how to make new documents in Photoshop, and we've considered all the different settings, all the colour modes, the resolutions, the sizing, the units we can choose. So it's been quite an involved lesson. And your lesson task is to create a new document that is suitable for the web. So if you go back, find out what resolution we said worked for the web, and then create a document that is 1024 or 1024 pixels by 768. Next time on 30 Days to Learn Photoshop, we'll be looking at navigating around an image, zoom, pan and hand tools. Thanks for listening.